Hi people. Oh, I finally made it. I'm online and we are live, and I'm gonna be answering all your questions you sent me throughout the week. So it's your girl Janie, and for the life of me, welcome back to For the Life of Me. If you're new, where you been? And if you're subscribed, thank you for joining me today. And without further ado, I'm just gonna first ask you guys. I hope your week has been good and you're looking forward to starting a new fun week. I'm gonna grab a chair and sit down so we can get into talking about what you guys asked me this week. Okay. So grabbing a chair. Good. I hope you can still see me and I'm still in the frame. I'm just gonna adjust that a little bit. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Perfect. Okay, I hope you guys can see me. And without further ado, let's get into questions about. So a lot of you sent me questions throughout the week on Instagram on at Beian A, and some of you emailed it to at beianaj@gmail.com. So I hope I'll be able to answer your questions today. And I hope you guys can hear me. If you can hear me, please send a like so I can see this. So this is the first time I'm doing the live session on my phone. First time I'm doing the live session on my phone, and I hope it goes well, because last week, the first time I did it on my laptop, and that was okay. But I'm just trying new things with you guys, and hopefully, we are doing this right. Okay, I spent 2 minutes now just trying to fix things. I'm sorry for all the tech issues. Oh, look at me, just scrambling around. Okay, so I'm just gonna go straight into the questions that I was asked throughout the week, okay? And I just wrote them down so I'm not blabbing around and I'm more structured and organized, okay? So the first question was actually a correction from last week's question by Gail. She's asking about Toronto School of Management, not Toronto School of Canada, and if what my opinion on the school is. Okay, so this is the point in the live session where I say the disclaimer I always say. I am not an immigration consultant, so I can say my opinion about schools or living in Canada or working in Canada. But you have to remember that it's based on one person's opinion. You have to do your own research and seek like legal help, which I can connect you with if you want. But remember, I'm not your one resource to making any big life decisions. Okay? Okay? Just getting that out there. Cool. So, about Toronto School of Management, I realized from researching the school that the school is new. It's an innovative college according to them, and they're opening, or they just opened March of this year. So that sent some flags being like, okay, they're new, they're trying to innovate within the school system in Canada. So they're more like a career college. Thank you for the like, because I can see now that you're probably hearing me. I'm not getting any questions from anyone live because for some reason it's not coming up on my screen. So if you're sending me any questions, I'm sorry, I can't see them. So I'm just gonna stick with, yeah, I just can't see questions. So I'm just gonna stick with what was already sent to me previously, and anything else I'll probably answer it later after the live, or later after the live, or on our next Sunday session at 4 p.m. Okay, so back to the question. So about Toronto School of Management, she's asking about like a diploma in business administration. So they're new, so you do know that you're gonna be their experiment for the first year. So be ready for that. One thing, they have a DLI number, which is a designated learning institute number. So that means it's legit, meaning that if they send you a letter of admission, you can actually use that letter to apply for your study permit. Because one of the things that's very paramount for getting your study permit in Canada is that the school's acceptance letter actually has a DLI number. So the fact that they have that is good. However, they're new, so you have to keep that in mind. The fees for diploma in BA was about 12,500 Canadian, which I'm just like, okay, because the college I went to, Humber, was about 14,800 Canadian. So it's not that cheap compared to Humber, but it's a school in Toronto, so it's, you don't expect anything cheaper than that. However, there was a red-ish flag when it said that there's a final price of 8,000 Canadian for international students. I don't know if I want to go into a school that has promotions on tuition, because it just says, I mean, it's good and it's that it's cheaper, but it just says that professors are probably going to be paid less and they might strike later on. I don't know. I'm just, and when there's a strike like York University went through, you're going to be affected as an international student, meaning you're going to have to apply for an extension to your study permit. It's just messy. Okay, so I think this school's okay. They're new, so they're only offering 3 diplomas, but you still have to do your own due diligence and be ready to be their lab rat since it's their first year in operations. Okay, moving on to the next question by Beian. He's asking what the requirements for study permit is, what the visa price is, or study visa, which I should let you guys know in Canada is actually a study permit. Visas are separate. Visas just let you go in and out of the country. And the questions I was asked by the immigration officers when I arrived. It's been almost 3 years now, so I'm not going to remember those questions exactly, but I can try to call that out. But first things, requirements for your study permit depends on the country you're in and what level of education you're applying to. So people from India will probably have different requirements than people from Jamaica. I don't know. But there's a link I'm gonna attach to this video when I upload it live where you can actually see what the standard requirements are. Some of them are actually, and again, requirements differ from documents. So I don't know what you're asking, but with regards to documents, you have to have things like an acceptance letter from an accredited university or college that has a DLI number, and you have to have your transcripts and proof of graduation from whatever school you're trying, whatever level of school you're trying to go to the next one of, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. And then if your education wasn't administered in English, you might have to get like a translation of your credentials. That's another thing you have to do. And then things like you have to show proof of financial support, that when you come here as an international student, you're not going to go homeless and give the government extra stress, okay? So they need to see that. And also, something you have to know, it depends on, again, where in Canada you're going to, because Quebec is different from everywhere else. Quebec has their own laws and everything else. So that is it for requirements. Remember, I'm going to leave a link down there for you. With regards to fees for your visa, your entry visa and study permit. So your entry visa, if I remember, was $100, and your study permit application fee is $150. So you need a visa to come into the country, and then you get a study permit stamped. No, you get your study permit document when you come in at the airport at your point of entry. So together it would be $250. Not bad. And regarding questions I was asked at the border when I got here, it was things like they need to see, which is weird, but they need to see proof that you plan to move back to your home country after schooling. So they'll ask you questions like if you have family back home, when are you going to be gone, stuff like that. Also, they're going to need to see proof of financial support that you plan. They need to see like bank statements or whatever sometimes to see that you have some money for the period up until when school starts. Also, it depends on when you come into the country. If you come way too early before your school starts, like say 6 months ahead, they're going to wonder what you're doing for 6 months just loafing without going to school. So they're going to ask you why. Or some people I've heard were sent back if they came in too early. And they're going to find out what address you plan on leaving at when you're here. So usually you have to sort out accommodation. Excuse me. Sort out accommodation before you get into Canada. And yeah, I think that's like the basic questions I remember being asked. Of course, you need to show your acceptance letter at the airport also, and proof that you've paid a deposit or some part of your tuition. Okay, next question by Abisayo. I've gotten admission at Regina University, and they're asking to pay for a letter of acceptance before applying for your study permit? And can I accompany my wife who got the admission as her husband? So I'm gonna start with so paying for a letter of acceptance is weird to me. You shouldn't pay for a letter of acceptance. You should get accepted and deposit your tuition after to get like uh, proof that you're an incoming student, which just means, excuse me, which just means because I remember all the schools I've gone to is when I apply to them and have paid my application fee. Paying your application fee and getting in is enough for them to send you a letter of acceptance. You shouldn't pay for that. What you have to pay for though is usually with that letter of acceptance, they'll say you have up until this time to pay your tuition deposit to secure your spot. And usually paying your tuition deposit is always like a month or two after you get that letter maximum, and that would be enough time before you apply for your study permit. So you shouldn't be paying for your acceptance letter. That's sketchy. But of course, you still have to pay some tuition before you arrive, because the border officers will need to know that you are not just lying about coming to school. You've actually showed intent by putting your money into it. And as regards accompanying your wife as her husband, that is very convoluted to me. What do you mean accompany? Do you mean accompanying her to come like settle and then you need a visitor's visa, or do you mean accompanying her to live here while she's studying? Then to do that, you will need a work permit, and that's a total different application process for yourself. I hope I've been able to answer your questions. If you have any more following questions, you can ask me in email, or we'll talk in the comment section below, because I'll be uploading this video after everything is done. Oh, thank you. Okay, so Divine Heritage asked me on Instagram. She applied for a diploma in business at Conestoga. Is 20 hours enough for tuition? 20 hours part-time work enough for tuition and other things? And of course, working full-time during holidays. And is it easy to get PR after school? Okay, so 20 hours of work, assuming you're in Ontario, and getting $14 per hour. Sorry, I'm doing the math. So a week you'll be getting $280 times 4. It'll probably be just upwards of, or just about $1,000. So it's usually not enough to be. I mean, it wasn't enough for me. You have to live really frugal. So yeah, you need to have savings or other sources of income. Some people do jobs under the table, like that are not checked, like say you style hair or you babysit for extra income apart from the standard 20 hours, and that can be supplementary income and can help with tuition. But it's usually hard. You need to have like savings extra and live frugal. Live in a student apartment where you pay, your rent is cheap. You cook at home so you don't buy food outside, and transportation. Live close to school so you can walk to school and not have to pay for bus. Some schools actually have bus passes free for their students. So those are things to look into. And on getting PR after school, is being easy or hard? You can accept. Okay, so it depends. So I'm gonna make an entire video on the PR application process on how I understand it. But PR meaning permanent residency. So it depends. If you have work experience from another country, up to a minimum of 1 year, you can apply through the Federal Skilled Worker route of the Express Entry program, which means you get into the PR pool. It's a ranking system, so it depends on how much points you have. So I can't just tell if it's easy for you or hard for you. Someone who has a lot of experience and goes to school here, it might be easy for them, but if you don't have a lot of work experience in your field and you haven't done any Canadian experience, it might not be easy for you. So it's a very dependent question on your skills and qualifications. But ideally, what a lot of people do when they come to study here and don't have some professional working experience from back home is after school, they get your work permit, work for 1 year, and when you've worked for a minimum of 1 year, you can apply for your permanent residency, and that is easy. Almost everyone gets it that way, except you do something very visibly bad. Okay, so I have 2 last questions. I'm gonna try to keep this shorter than 16 minutes. So Cardie asked about It's a long question in an email, and the main issue, from what I understand, is she's had to pay a deposit of almost 7,000 to get a letter of admission. Red flag. And so in at University of Canada West, this is I believe in Vancouver, or at least in British Columbia. And so she's asking if it makes sense to keep going with this school because it's been hard to get a letter of admission out of them based on her situation. She'd had to defer going to school, and now they've been asking her for another set of documents. So Cardie, to answer your question based on the email you sent me, which was really lengthy, what I understand is a school, when, even no matter if you defer your admission, I haven't done this, but what I understand is if you defer your admission, they should still have all the documents you applied to the school in the first place in your file. So they shouldn't be asking you for another transcript. I understand that in some third world countries like mine, it's so hard to actually get these documents again from school. So they should just continue your application based on the original acceptance they had granted you. And I think it's a red flag that you have to pay all of this amount, almost 7 grand, just to get an admission letter. Admission letters should be free when you apply, pay your application fee, like I mentioned earlier. Paying a tuition deposit is something different, and paying a tuition deposit already means you have a seat in the class. So I think, and so University of Canada West, from what I understand, is a private for-profit institution, and $32,000 for an MBA is really sketchy. Usually MBAs are like 50,000 and above. So and the fact that deposit for local students is only 500, meanwhile for international students it's like 6,300, is a big red flag. That is not fair. Deposits, I remember even for the public, really expensive school some of my friends go to, was $2,000, and that is after you've gotten your letter of acceptance. It should not be before. Okay, so your question is it wise to continue pursuing UCW? I think you should. I think you should ask them to send your letter of acceptance that it's your right, seeing that you've paid the deposit. Or because, and the fact is July 2018 is already true. It's next month. You might not be able to get your study permit in a month. It took me like 6 months to get my study permit. So you might not be able to make it for this intake. And at light of that, so maybe you just apply and get rejected to get your refund, or threaten to legally drag the school. I don't know what you want to do. Don't take my advice for it. I think you should speak to a lawyer. So you should pay a consultancy fee with a lawyer in Canada or in where you're from, and ask their opinion on this, especially because it's a lot of money you've paid for. The school has a DLI, but like you said, I've seen reviews that are not so good either too. So I think you should consult a legal practitioner on what to do in this situation, okay? I hope that helps your question. And so the last question for this live is by Ibrahim, where he's asking if for colleges with cheap tuition fee. I made an entire video on universities versus colleges and top 10 colleges and universities that are cheap. I'm going to put that link again under this live video, and I really hope that helps you. So guys, that rounds up the question session for today. I hope I've been able to leave a 4D smile on your face. If I have, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know what I can do better with these live sessions coming up. Remember to subscribe and click on the bell notification to get announcements when I make a video or I shoot a live session like this. Also send in your questions to Beian A on Instagram or beianaj@gmail.com to go Janie, and thank you so much for your time today. See you next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye guys.